Welcome to the 2021 Opal Special Awards presentation for sustainability. The special awards are exclusively nominated by our jury panel. At Opal, we take our small part of promoting sustainable practices in the built industry by showcasing game-changing ideas and outstanding concepts. So, without further ado, we announce the 2021 Opal Special Award winner in sustainability.
The 2021 Opal Special Award for Sustainability. SOM, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill.
This is a great honor to be receiving the Opal Sustainability Award on behalf of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. We really appreciate this recognition, but most importantly, we hope that this will inspire innovation across our sector. So thank you.
Thank you.
SM is known for high-rise buildings and innovative solutions that are scalable. Could you give us an intel and sneak preview what you're currently working on?
Yeah, we'd be delighted to. We are working on Urban Sequoia, and it's really an investigation of a building that looks to sequester carbon. And we see the pressures currently where we're looking at this 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold and realizing that just getting to net zero doesn't take us far enough. And we really need to see how we can get carbon positive buildings going forward. And this is really the whole hypothesis of our project with Urban Sequoia. And fundamental to the feasibility of this and to deliver our concept is the way in which we are collaborating as not only an interdisciplinary practice, but thinking about how we talk to the rest of our offices. But it's even more important about how we reach out to industry, looking at our research, and also using academia to bring this different series of solutions forward to the built community. And it's really important how we can scale this across regions and across different varied contexts of our built environment. In this initial phase, we are taking a more complex high-rise typology, which we found to be a great test bed because it has the most pressures of how we would actually make this a sustainable and carbon positive project. And it's really important how we look at these different strategies and the way in which these systems and technologies can eventually be brought into a building and make it carbon sequestered and carbon positive.
And of course, in this process, we're thinking beyond a single building because we realize and acknowledge very much the economies of scale that a city can bring, and understanding how different layers of the city, infrastructure, landscape, sort of the built environment, physical built environment, can really become a part of the solution and sequester carbon for generations. So I think we're constantly trying to address the question is like, how can carbon become a new resource and a commodity that can be shared, used, and traded across neighborhoods, across cities, across continents even.
Besides making new build projects more sustainable, what are your solutions for existing buildings?
Well, I think this is a really fascinating question in regards to our whole industry. And I think at the start of the last century, things became much easier for us to think about how we took down buildings in order to put new ones forward. And that started with the Industrial Revolution and the idea that materials were so prevalent. And we lost touch with how we might actually think about historic and heritage buildings. I live here in London, and I'm quite fascinated with single family dwellings that we look at with Victorian and Georgian properties that could be 200 years old and have probably gone through 6, 7, 8 different variations within their lifespan. So at certain scales, we seem to be very, very good at this, and we seem to keep the housing stock for single family dwellings. But as soon as we take that to a certain scale, we seem to have lost touch with the way in which we might adapt an existing building. And I think there's been a new tide that has come through in our industry where people crave for different spatial qualities, and they aren't so focused on a very scientific way in which we might think about ceiling heights or the way we might move through spaces. And there's a more eclectic way that I think we have now found and brought in touch with our history and our heritage of the built environment. So I think this has really opened up our opportunity also as a practice to think about projects across the globe that we wouldn't maybe have previously thought that much about. But we are looking at buildings that are in Milan to Switzerland and Geneva, as well as looking at very important projects like Moynihan Station in New York, where we've been able to take these great heritage buildings and bring a new life to them. And I think this is where there's a great opportunity for all of us in the built environment to really think carefully about the past and the way in which we treat our buildings.
I can, and I also actually wanted to add to Ken's point earlier about sort of thinking about the past and understanding their impact and place in the future. It's really important for heritage buildings or existing buildings to be renovated to today's standards, but more importantly to stay resilient and be relevant for the decades to come and to serve many generations. I think that's really important. And some of the key projects we have been working on over the last few years, where we try to bring sort of this core principles of circularity and regeneration, include the Corso Italia in Milan, which is a complex sort of a development of 3 buildings from 1960s that have certain heritage value, and we're currently renovating them to give them a new life, a new purpose, but also more importantly really valuing the materials that they had in place from the 1960s and trying to find a new purpose for those materials. For example, we're taking the granite from the facade of existing buildings and upcycling them to be reused in the renovation scheme rather than sending it to landfill.
What is your perfect vision for a sustainable future?
I think before we get into that, I think we need to just step back and think of our profession and understand why we haven't been able to create the change that we would have expected at this point in time. And there are now a lot of pressures for us. Our backs are against the wall and we are looking at this. And I think people are still trying to work in maybe the same way that we always have. And I think to me that's a fundamental issue that needs to be addressed by our profession. That if we're going to solve these very complex issues, we need to be bringing far more people to the table. And we need to widen this value chain that bring experts in many different areas. I think historically architects in our built environment try to work the problem through and then be able to present that back to our clients. And I think those days have changed, where we really need to not only think about how we might change the way we tackle a particular problem to a building, but more importantly, I think we need to be much more open as a design community to solve this. I think for us individually to say that we're going to solve the carbon problem across the globe is never going to happen. We really need to think about how we're going to do this collectively. And so we really would like to open and broaden the way in which we might be able to collaborate with the rest of our design communities. And I hope that would be wholly embraced by everyone within our community. Mina, do you want to?
Yeah, and I think if I can add to Kent's points, I think it's important to not only widen our sphere of influence, but also in the way that we bring others to the table, but also we need to evolve as professionals as well. I think the future of architecture, engineering, planning, interior design, in general design is going to need a transformation, a revolutionary thinking in the way that we design, build, construct, and operate built environments. And for that, I think a fundamental part is really this coming together as a collective and sort of going beyond our sector, going beyond the traditional disciplines that we work in today, to really have a foresight of what the future is requiring us to do, and continuously research. I think research is a fundamental part of the future solution of delivering a sustainable building and continuously improving the designs that we're creating today.
And so that, I guess, maybe sets what we talk about today. I think you were really pushing for what the future holds. And I would come back to the reason why we put forward the Urban Sequoia project, and that was really to think about not getting to net zero. We feel that net zero will not get us to the place we need to be in order to save our planet. We really need to really think about how our buildings could be carbon positive. And that is a big leap, but that's exactly what I think our industry hasn't done for a long period of time, to be able to make these strong changes when society is asking that from us. And so I go back to the core principles of what Urban Sequoia was trying to do at both new building and existing building stock, of looking at how we can get all of our buildings to carbon positive, but also think at the urban scale and district scales to see how we can actually work as a community. Too often, again, coming back to the things that we've done in the past, is that we think about building by building, parcel by parcel solution to these, but we actually don't think about a whole community being net zero or carbon positive.
And I think it's the first time our industry globally is thinking about a systemic approach in the way that we design built environments, and definitely think about beyond the immediate scope of boundary that is defined by a project brief, to really understand the impact of the decisions we're taking today for the generations to come.